Thank you so much, listeners, for hanging out with us. For the next couple of hours, we're going to bring you some public affairs programming. Thank you to the previous show. What a wonderful Main and Hastings we have. And there'll be more programming coming up after 7 p.m. In a few moments, we are going to be connecting with student representatives from UBC to discuss their coalition's year-long advocacy to divest for Palestine. This has met with no response from UBC Administrators and Governors. You'll be also, after that, we are going to be having conversations with a number of folks who are interested in pointing you towards directions around Buy Canada and Support Palestine. Stay tuned for programming like that and more will be coming up soon. And listeners, thank you so much. So if you had forgotten, we broadcast on 100.5 FM, and we also stream at www.coopradio.org. And on the line, we are joined by a student representative from UBC. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for taking this time out.
Thanks for having me.
I guess the last time we connected was in February or March, where we were talking about how UBC is dodging students, quite a number of students, quite a number of coalitions, asking UBC to relook at its investments in the war industry and specifically as it relates to Palestine. And you are one of the representatives that has been working on this for, I guess, over a year now. For listeners that might not be aware of what is happening in terms of this policy issue around UBC, can you take us to sort of the beginnings a little bit?
Absolutely. There have been multiple efforts by students at the University of British Columbia to bring about to show a broad-based support for divestment from Israeli companies that are engaged in apartheid and occupation. And this began in the 2010s when students worked to get a referendum passed twice. They tried through the student union. Unfortunately, the bar is very high for getting quorum, and they were not able to get quorum both times. It's very complicated, very obscure system in some ways, and so but they did actually finally get through the student union a motion that called on the student union to ask the university to divest from 9 companies, and in response to that, the president of UBC at the time, Santa Ono, said, "We just don't do BDS." He just flat out refused the request that came sanctioned by the student union of 60,000 students. So as a consequence, the movement kept continuing to push. It ended up at This was, by the way, the student union at Vancouver. The student union at Okanagan also put through a motion that passed successfully calling for divestment. And then we had so many other tactics that we used, including the encampments, letter writing, petitions. We had 5 months of meetings with the administration, sitting down for 2 to 3 hours each every week, sitting face to face and advocating for them to have some kind of a response to the extraordinary harm and like genocide, apartheid, every kind of "ide" that you could think of, every side that there is.
May, can I just step back and ask you to describe further those meetings that you had with them? When you said you had face-to-face meetings with them, can you describe who you had them with at UBC and what kinds of responses they would give you back to what you were asking for?
Yeah, I guess there were a number of admin that were at those meetings. They asked us to not share their names in particular, but we were a coalition of students from 5 different student groups and faculty observers meeting with about 5 or 6, it depended on the meeting, members of the top level of administration. Okay. Never, though, President Bacon himself, but others.
Okay.
And we would discuss basically huge documents of research that we would give them, explaining this is the rationale for why you need to do this. Here's what your own policies say. You are a signatory to the UN Principles for Responsible Investing, and under that you have to care very much about human rights, and yet you have absolutely nothing at this point in time that addresses human rights issues in your portfolio. And so through those meetings, they would respond with, well, I actually have a whole list of tactics that they use. Sometimes they would suddenly be helpless, despite the fact that they are in an institution with 20,000 staff and faculty at their disposal and often are making in the millions of, hundreds of thousands of dollars. For some reason, they'd be extremely helpless and powerless. Mm-hmm. And other times they would tell us, oh, that's not our jurisdiction. You have to talk to so-and-so. You talk to so-and-so. They'd say, talk to so-and-so. And so you go around in a circle. They used many, many different ways of getting us to just get exhausted through those meetings. Mm. Of course, we expected some of that to happen. That is part of the bureaucratic colonial system of grinding people down and making them go into a space of learned helplessness. But because we could see the tactics that they were using coming at us, we would try to use the bureaucracy in the way that it should have worked, which included, if you start a procedure, it has to end. And in a sense, we were able to, through this process, begin a procedure for the university to announce that it was committed to a human rights framework for responsible investing. And so that process is ongoing. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing now is doing our best to support and express how important it is for them to do this process properly in the most complete way possible. Otherwise, it will be not the legacy that it could be, but rather a failure and a source of reputational harm, because the students will not allow an incomplete and human rights washing of the portfolio rather than a full comprehensive human rights divestment proposal to go through.
Can you describe to us a little bit around the encampment and how UBC dealt with that?
So UBC sees itself as a progressive institution, and so what they chose to do was to wait out the encampment, understanding that rather than sweeping and having some kind of a police presence that was overt, we had surveillance, we had harassment, we had intimidation, but nothing like the kinds of things that happened, let's say, at Calgary or at York University, where it was extremely intense and, in a sense, could add fuel to the fire. Instead of doing that, they just let the wind and the rain do their work or try to wait us out, essentially, while at the same point telling us that they really wanted to sit down and talk with us. So they basically began conversations with us, which they had not been having before. So that was something that encampment did push them towards. And then once we began the conversations, and we felt that it was moving in a good direction, because initially they gave us a lot of things that they said they could support us with, including getting a motion before the Board of Governors. And then we said, okay, well, as a gesture of good faith, and also because we see that the encampment tactic has been used up and it's done its job, and we're moving to the next phase, we decided to decamp. And then pretty much the meeting after that, they suddenly said that the motion was not something they could support anymore. So, these are the things that you can expect in a situation of conversation with an actor that you never know. It's a little bit ambiguous. Were they good faith or not? Did something truly come up? When you're in moments like this, you don't know unless you're inside the other person's head. But certainly, it was not a good look from our perspective.
Yeah, I feel for you. I mean, it's such a no-brainer to have public institutions be on the side of human rights. But, I mean, one of the things that this is exposing is just the extent of rigidity they have around sticking to their investments, which is mind-boggling. Can we talk a little bit about some of the other activities around UBC that is drawing attention to this issue?
Well, right now we have a big referendum that ends today that is calling for the 60,000 students on UBC Vancouver campus to vote on whether or not they support having the student union, the Alma Mater Society, sanction a 2-day student strike for Palestine. And we're very confident that this could very likely be a historic win. We have done a lot of canvassing, a lot of one-on-one conversations with other students, and they are fully on board. So what that goes through, we expect to be having a student strike on the 24th and the 25th of March in alignment with the universities in Quebec province that are also having a general unlimited student strike for Palestine. So we coordinated this ahead of time, and we're very excited to see what will happen with this, because it would be an unprecedented action for Palestine as far as we know in British Columbia. On the second aspect of things is we are working on a petition which is available at www.ubcdivest.org. Over there, we've gathered, I think, 1,600 signatures so far. These are signatures that we would be taking to the Board of Governors to show the broad base of support from community members. So anybody can sign, community members, faculty, staff, students. We encourage everybody to go to that site and see all of the research and all of the information we have about the companies that we're concerned about. And so that is ongoing as another item that we want to present to the Board of Governors. And then finally, today is the launch of our hunger strike. This is a hunger strike that, in essence, is protesting the fact that through all of our efforts, everything that we have done, again, it's been since the encampment, which began in April of last year until now, all of these efforts, the university has shown absolutely no response publicly to the 5 demands that we had made from May 15th of 2024, and this is simply not on. We have so many students who are Palestinian or from any walk of life who are sitting and watching and saying, how can it be that my institution is showing no response to the destruction of every university in Gaza, to a blockade right now that is starving men, women, elders, children in Gaza with nothing to say about that. This is not okay, especially given the precedent of UBC definitely showing a response when Ukraine was invaded. What is this other than anti-Palestinian racism? what is this other than deciding that some people have lives that are more valuable than others, that some people are absolutely expendable? That is not an education that we will ever accept, and we will push and protest against it every single day until UBC shows a responsible response.
For folks who are listening and they want more information, where do they go again online?
It is www.ubcdivest.org.
Right. May, can you give us a sense of like what's the mood on campus around students and this issue? I mean, I'm not asking you to necessarily look into your crystal ball, but sort of give us an idea of how, generally speaking, students are feeling, or how engaged do you think students are with this issue?
I can speak for today. Our hunger strike is going from 9 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. And I've been sitting in the hunger strike zone from 9 a.m. this morning. We'll be doing this from Monday through Friday. And we have a community iftar that everybody's welcome to come to at iftar time. And just sitting there with just a sign that says hunger strike zone, people have come up and said, thank you so much for doing this. This is what needs to be done. Everybody's been coming with smiles. There's been nobody who's asked hostile questions or said that I don't think you should be doing what you're doing. So really the sense here, especially because we have had this referendum as well, which got sent to every single student on campus. So 60,000 students were sent the right to vote on this referendum. There's a real sense that they feel things are happening here. They feel that we're starting to show our numbers, and that it's exciting to think that the university is going to have to contend with the fact that a large part of the student body, considering that a large part of the student body are putting their names on these votes, and that many of them are afraid, having seen what's happened to Mahmoud Khalil in the U.S., to different professors who've lost their jobs, to all kinds of repression that's been happening across Canada and the U.S., all across Turtle Island. It's quite something to think that there are so many who are putting their names in the many petitions that we've put forward. Even before we were able to get the referendum on the ballot, we had to get over 1,000 signatures. It was about 1,400. Again, people are putting their names forward despite knowing that there's repercussions. So I think people are fed up, and I think people also are seeing that we are together in this.
What kinds of, when are we expecting the results for the referendum?
The referendum results, the referendum closes at 8 p.m., so the results should be published, I think, quite soon after that.
And again, the referendum is about. Tell us one more time what the question is to the students and what the effect of it is going to be.
The question, I will get the text wrong, but the general gist of it is: do the students, given that, given all the circumstances in Gaza and what apartheid Israel is doing, do the students support the student union in sanctioning a 2-day student strike on March 24th and 25th at the University of British Columbia, Vancouver campus?
Okay.
So in essence, the students are voting on whether or not they will protest. We as a collective body will protest for 2 days in March by going on strike. Got
it. Okay, it was my mistake because I was linking the hunger strike and the student strike. So these are two different things.
Correct. I know it's a lot.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And how many students are participating in the hunger strike, which also launched today, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a coalition effort, and we have one full-time hunger striker and others who are fasting and doing rolling hunger strikes.
Right.
So we have, I would say, 5 people who are participating at the moment in various different ways.
Okay. And you're looking for 5,000 yes votes from the students, which we'll hope to see very, very soon the results of.
In the referendum, that's right. That's 8% of the student body, at very least, has to vote yes for the referendum to pass.
Good. I think that's going to be an easy target to reach.
I think so too. I really have a very good feeling about it.
Yeah, you guys have been doing a lot of work, and I'm sure that students are quite aware of what's going on. Can you tell us a little bit more about the fallouts from the Invictus Games?
Yes, absolutely. We were outraged and aghast that UBC decided to host the swimming event of the Invictus Games on UBC Campus. And what happened was the aquatic center became highly militarized even before the day of the event, which was February 14th, Valentine's Day. And students were starting to be harassed, intimidated, patted down if they were even just trying to enter into the aquatic center as you would as a student, even before the day began. Then on the day of, one of the staff members at UBC had literally just gotten out of the bus in the bus loop, which is very close to the aquatic center, and was detained and handcuffed and taken into a van and left there for half an hour with no explanation other than, the only thing that he could think of was he was wearing a kafia. Later on, the police claimed it was because it was for mischief, and that it was because he had some red paint on his shoe, which was all over the floor on the ground as he was walking towards the van. So we had, in fact, there was a reporter standing there that caught the entire thing, including his walk towards the van, and you could see on his shoes there was no red paint. And then eventually when he was in the van, they said that there was red paint. So it was this was a staff member who'd been at UBC for 10 years. To be treated like that for no reason other than profiling was quite astounding. There were helicopters, drones. It woke me up. I live on campus, and there was no way you could sleep through all that racket. And just heavily militarized police that came here to protect, from what we can see, potential war criminals, and instead put student safety at risk. So there's a grad student lounge inside the Nest. The Nest is owned and operated by the Alma Mater Society, so it's the student union for UBC Vancouver. It is an independent organization that is in charge of this building, and yet somehow armed police or people in green, I don't even know what they would be called, went inside the student lounge area and were there with very threatening-looking equipment, surveilling basically the aquatic center. And what we understood was that they followed some of the students and demanded their ID. This is not appropriate. There was no consultation. There was no permission. They just entered into this space acting as though they belonged here. And definitely students felt afraid that this presence had suddenly come into their lounge area. So the fallout basically was that there were a number of campaigns, including a letter writing campaign that was led by Staff for Palestine, where I think 1,600 people wrote directly to UBC and said this is unconscionable, as well as a press conference that spoke to the harm that was done by all of this. We do not believe that UBC has been protecting us. Instead, it's definitely been protecting potential war criminals. They did not do due diligence to find out whether the soldiers that came for Israel and participated in our aquatic center had been involved in the genocide in Gaza or not. And this is one of every institution and person is required under international law to ensure that those who participate in genocide are punished. This is simply the law of the globe. And UBC did not do its due diligence in that case. Instead, they were protecting these war criminals at students' expense.
Did UBC ever come back to you guys when you informed them around this sort of duplicity with the Invictus Games? Did they ever come back to you on anything on that?
Their whole story was, oh, well, this is an external event, and we have no further comments, which is a ludicrous comment to make. You have an obligation and a responsibility as an institution. You also have the choice to not have the event held on your campus. They chose to allow Invictus Games to come and use our aquatic center. It is not enough to say it's out of our hands, it's a separate institution.
Yeah, no doubt. Can you give us a sense of how students and staff and professors, and we can split it up any way you want, but how members of the UBC community are being maybe harassed from UBC, by UBC, because of the stances that they are taking?
There is a professor who has received death threats for a story that was run in the mainstream media about the things the professor was saying in their lecture, and UBC did not step in and support that professor and protect them. When it comes to supporting their faculty, they have not been supportive. Instead, they have also done things like not renew the contract of, I think it was not renewing the contract or breaking the contract of sessional instructors who have been visibly pro-Palestine. These are not the actions of an institution that is respecting freedom of academic expression. They will use the term academic freedom of expression for people who say hateful things on social media that are blatantly anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian, but they will not use that when it comes to deciding that professors who have shown their solidarity with Palestine have the right to do so, to protect them. So we feel that all the protestations of the university that they are neutral or that they act in a principled way are not true, that they have double standards and incredible amounts of hypocrisy, and instead of protecting their values, they protect the feelings of their donors and lobbyists.
It's really disheartening to hear all of this, because I think normally Canadians feel like their universities are the opposite, and it's amazing that you guys have to work so hard for just these basic things.
I think in some ways it comes down to the money, and the university, this university has a lot of money, and it cares about its reputation, and yet at the same point it doesn't really hold to its values in the way that it should. In my view, values are things that you have to hold on to when it's really, really hard, and sometimes it means you lose certain things. And I think UBC is being greedy in the sense that it wants to pretend it has its values, but also have all the big money so it can do all its shiny big things. And the thing is, we as the students are watching, and is that really the example that they want to show for us, of just having hollow words about decolonialism and land acknowledgement and everything else that apparently is supposed to show them as being progressive? Instead, they definitely are very corporate, and they care about the bottom line. Of course, to some extent, they have to protect their ability to continue working and to have enough money to do all the things that have to be done. But even in my view, it's more important to be true to your values and take a slight hit. Maybe there'll be some people who will be slightly upset, but UBC is at a stage where it doesn't have to be kowtowing to this extent to its donors. I do believe that there is space for them to do the right thing here. And I hope that through all of the work that the students are doing, through Coalition, UBC will listen.
Well, I guess they're going to have to at some point, because it doesn't seem like you guys are willing to step back at this. In fact, it just seems like it'll grow, and UBC will have no choice. It's sad that it's going to have to come to that. I wonder so many things about how they perceive themselves in this situation. I mean, clearly, like you said, they have a reputation that they want to uphold, but at the same time, they know that they're getting a lot of flack because of this, and this is such a easy moral question. How can they justify their investments in these areas when it's such a clear-cut, easy choice to make? I mean, it would be one thing for them to come back to you and say, okay, give us, some months to realign ourselves, or even take advice on where they can invest. But this reticence to just be like this just seems so crazy. How do you square it?
I think one of the issues is that fundamentally universities are quite conservative, and there isn't a university yet in Canada that has jumped into the divestment space in a big way on Palestine or on weapons manufacturing broadly. So while we are most concerned about the extreme harm and genocide and 100-year Nakba that's been ongoing in Palestine, our goal is for this divestment to help everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in Sudan, Pakistan, Palestine, or anywhere else. If there's less money for weapons manufacturers, all of us will be safer off. And likewise, we want to screen on any companies that are identified by the UN as in violation of international law. Full stop. It doesn't matter who's doing the violating to whom. All of that has to go. So I think they are recognizing, through having committed to a human rights framework for responsible investing, they recognize that they have to do this. It's just exactly how they end up calling something a human rights framework is where we are concerned. So I think we're on our way to where we need to go, and I think our arguments are really strong. We have used all of their own policies, all of their own precedents to show that they do have to do this, and I think they actually didn't respond to a divestment proposal that we sent them on February 12th, where we called for meetings with the Board of Governors and with the investment management arm of UBC to discuss a deeply researched proposal that went through all of their arguments through the 5 months that we had, but also pulled out from investment experts a way forward for feasibly doing the divestment. So we know this way of doing things works. We know that in the past they did fossil fuel divestment in a similar way. There's no way that they can say no to this. So instead what they did was they ignored it. So when you're asking me, how do they come back at us with an argument? Sometimes they just pretend they haven't seen the argument, which isn't going to work, of course. We will just keep coming back at it. But I guess when you're asking, how do they justify this? I think there are, it's not a monolithic institution, and there are some people who are more sympathetic than others. I would just think that there are certain people in certain positions who I would say are perhaps Zionists. That's the only solution I can come to in my head. There's nothing other than pure ideology that would block you from doing something so common sense. Like, it's just on the side of history and just clearly something that is pure common sense.
May, what other kinds of activities did you identify UBC involving with if we widen the scope, say, out of just divestments and financials? What other kinds of ways do you feel that the university is supporting the ongoing colonization of not only Palestine, but so many other places around the world, including here?
Well, the demands that we gave to the university on May 15th of 2024, the first demand was about divestment because always material support has to be cut from genocide. That's clear. And then the second was to boycott Israeli universities and institutions. Again, there's a clear precedent of the university cutting ties with Russian government entities, which basically meant universities. As soon as there was the invasion of Ukraine, it was very, very quick. So we want them to boycott these universities, which are, and we have lots of research that shows this, implicated in the genocide and apartheid and occupation of Palestinians. We want them to terminate certain archaeological excavations that they do on stolen Palestinian land in some of the coursework that they've got. We want them to we want them to condemn so actually verbally name genocide in Gaza. In all of our meetings with them, even when Palestinian students were looking at them and saying, my family members are being killed and you can't call it a genocide, I'm standing right in front of you, they would refuse to do that. It's just this very, very weird blank spot. Again, not everybody. There was one person that did try to take student well-being into account and named the genocide, but others did not. And then we think it's really important, of course, the campus safety issue that is particularly of concern for marginalized communities and BIPOC communities, because the RCMP unit that comes on campus engages in suppression and violence, and that's well documented and known, and is even under federal review for that. And then we thought it was really important for the right of return and the right to resist of Palestinians to be affirmed. So all in all, we feel that the university can not be standing silent on the sidelines when we are watching this century's absolute worst catastrophe and Holocaust happen. When people say never again, I mean, all we've heard all through decades of being lectured at by these universities that call themselves progressive is that genocide is a terrible, horrible thing, and you cannot stand by and be a bystander. And here we are, and yet all these universities that were full of all these pretty words are standing by silent. And it's astonishing that students are having to put aside their studies and their jobs and their free time just to continually try to force these universities to do their job.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, it's a Canada-wide thing, isn't it? So I know that you're coordinating with other universities nationally as well around the same issue, because after all, I mean, it's all intertwined. And research and funding the industrial war complex is a major part of universities. I'm sure there's a lot of research that is being done at UBC as well as many other universities across Canada that is totally tied in and supportive of this. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the activities that you have been planning for the next little while that's coming up?
Absolutely. So from Mondays through Fridays, from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, we have our hunger strike zone in the UBC AMS Nest, which is a building on campus. And we have programming at the hunger strike zone. There will be teach-ins on the history of resistance then and now. That's actually, there's a wonderful kind of reenactment happening of dialogue and conversation tomorrow at noon by a wonderful faculty member. And then another faculty member, I believe, is scheduling in a teach-in at 11 o'clock on Wednesday that would be talking about the linkages between Palestinian resistance and Indigenous resistance. There is a likely, I believe, a teach-in that will be on Thursday talking about the history of hunger strikes. We have an art activity on Friday the 21st, which is called School Colors, which will involve doing posters led by a fabulous artist, which will be a protest art that you might see around the city afterwards. And every single day that we're here, we have community iftar. Everybody is welcome to come and join us. On the 24th and 25th of March is our student strike, and we have programming planned there, including likely a double-header film screening on the 25th. The details are still being worked out. It'll be on our Insta. That's what I can run through for the moment, but we have additional things like poetry circles as well planned. So there's lots going to be happening, and everybody's welcome to come drop by our hunger strike zone, say hello, sign a petition, wear your keffiyeh, and hang out with us, have a good conversation.
That's awesome. Are you planning on streaming some of the teach-ins so that folks outside will be able to get a chance, or is there any chance of that at all?
We definitely are trying to figure out some of the technical aspects of it. We have people on it, but we'll have to see what our capacity is.
Yeah, no.
We are. Yeah.
But I hope that you can at least record it so that in the future you can throw it up. I mean, sometimes it's hard to stream it live, but if you can record it, it would be nice.
Yes, we'll definitely take that on board and try our best to do that. Thank you for those suggestions.
Yeah, no, we would love to rebroadcast it as well. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Any last words? I know
you've
talked a lot. I've probably exhausted you.
Well, this is the first day. I still have some energy.
Okay.
But also, I guess I just want to say that being on my first day of a hunger strike, I've been thinking about how since from the start of Ramadan, so March 1st, apartheid Israel started again restricting all food, water, power, aid, and medical supplies from entering Gaza. That's 2.3 million people deliberately being exposed to conditions of life calculated to bring about their destruction. There's nothing less genocidal than that. It's clearly meant to destroy the population of Gaza. And even as we're sitting here and we're trying our best as students in the belly of the beast to do something about this, to show that we're standing with Gaza, the thing that is our shining star is really just how Palestinians embody the steadfastness, the resilience, the endurance in the face of this horrific, constantly ever-darkening adversity. So we're doing our best to stand resolute and to hold UBC accountable. We hope others join us because this world has got to be better. We demand justice. We want a world where universities are held to the highest ethical standards and where their actions align with the principles of human rights and dignity. We hope everybody can join us. Do your part in whatever way you can. We all have to do this together and do it with love.
That's awesome. And let listeners know one more time where they can find information online.
Yes, you can go to www.ubcdivest.org. You can also go to Instagram to @UBC to follow our posts there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking this time out, for putting yourself out there on the line and sharing with us. Good luck, and we look forward to better news as we go down the road.
Thank you so much, Anur. Have a really good day.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and so we're still here on 100.5 FM and Coast Salish Territories and at www.coopradio.org. We're going to go have a quick musical break, and then we will come back with some programming around how you can support Buy Canada and support Palestinians around the same time. Stay tuned.